Hello, everybody. This is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. My name is Stephen D. Kelly. It's Thursday night. It's February 3rd, 2022. Oh, I'm so old. It's 6:02 p.m. I was screwing around for a couple minutes. It's, like I said, we get to do that. The title of the show tonight is, and I was troubled over this because I want to say, how do I preface that? Well, I want to say the title of the show is, and then the first word of the title is the word is. So let me give that to you. Is Dan Scavino a criminal? Give me evidence. Do you have any evidence? Well, you better be listening to the show if you want the evidence. Evidence. No. All right. Now, first of all, I never even knew who this guy was. And second of all, you might think, why is he important? Why am I not talking about it with why am I talking about him? What does this have to do with the Getty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? But apparently, this guy's connected to Trump, and not just in a small way. He's very important, and we're going to be talking about that. And he is the guy that's basically behind Trump's internet presence, which is what is driving Trump. Now, when we're fighting an enemy, it's very difficult to fight that enemy when we're not united. And the enemy has done a very good job of dividing us on different polarities, so-called liberal, so-called conservative. And of course, Donald Trump is representing one of those poles. Biden is supposedly the figurehead for the other. But the point is that as long as the Trump character stays on the scene and divides our efforts, dilutes them and focuses them in the wrong direction, we never get anywhere. So it's necessary for this guy to go away because we need all of our efforts pointed in one direction. And we can't do that with this guy at the helm because all of the people supporting the other side are going to hate us as long as this guy is at the helm. Worse than the way we feel about them. We'll never get anywhere. So no matter how you feel about Donald Trump or what you think about his leadership skills or his ability to actually save the world or save the country or do whatever it is that you think he's going to do, all that aside, the reality, as long as he is there, we'll never accomplish anything, and he needs to go away. And the quickest way to do that, apparently, we found a magic tool, a new target, and that is Dan Scavino, Daniel Scavino. Now, we're going to talk about his life, the things that he's done, and we'll point out quite a few times, I think, that he's done a very good job of maintaining an extremely low profile for somebody that's extremely high profile for the functions that he has and for the fact that he's basically connected to Trump at the hip. Everybody knows this. He's the closest confidant advisor that Trump has. He's the longest serving aide of any aide that hasn't been fired. He's known him, Trump, since he was a boy, which we'll talk about. So he was there for many things. He's seen many things, and he was privy to many dirty things. So when we talk about this Dan Scavino guy, we're going to talk about how he came to meet Trump, how Trump came to dominate his life, how he became intertwined in the Trump family business, or shall we say the Trump crime family business, and how he became an associate of this crime family. You'll also see that this is a man who has no ambition other than to support his leader, his godfather, his Don, And in this case, I'll say that this is a man that when the time comes will fall on his sword to protect his master. And I fully expect that if my campaign to expose him and to paint him with the same brush that he uses to paint Donald Trump's enemies, I think that because of his weak mind and his weak character and his issues, I suspect that he will, if he's not killed by the Trump family, will kill himself to either protect the Trump family or to make sure that he's never used to testify against them. The very worst, he will be instrumental in putting the Trump family in jail. And this, of course, would be something that he would probably want to kill himself for. So you need to understand just why this man is such a brown-nosing slave, a complete simp to Donald Trump. You really need to understand. So the best way to begin this story is to first give you an example of a movie. People like movies. And this particular movie we're going to talk about is Caddyshack. Now, if any of you have seen Caddyshack, it's a wonderful story involving elitism and the club life of the resort life of the country club around the golf course and the various elitists that frequent these things, and the class distinction between the lower individuals that serve them and the people on the outside that could never begin to become members of any of these clubs because of either social status or economic status. And what's important to remember and keep in mind throughout this entire show is that these people we're talking about live in this rarefied world that is the country club. They do not just act as members of these country clubs, they own country clubs. And they own so many of them that you're going to see that these properties are completely connected to all of the financial business dealings and tax evasion and legal issues that Trump is facing today, including the rest of his family. So many of these issues, these lawsuits that are being brought up or brought out, like the one that's being pursued right now in New York with the Attorney General. If you look at the history, you'll see that this has been going on with the Trump family, and not just this one, but Fred and before that, since the very beginning. So tax evasion, manipulation of money, illegal diversion of funds, fraud, this sort of thing, this is what we're really talking about. And yes, there are many, many criminals. And I don't want to hear anyone say, what about Biden? What about this person? What about that person? Because the person we're talking about tonight, Dan Scavino, is a minor criminal. But why he's important is because this minor criminal was sitting at the table when the big criminals plotted minor crimes. In other words, tax evasion, mishandling of funds, lying about the value, accurate valuation of real estate, etc., etc. These sort of crimes pale compared to murder, espionage, sexual crimes, pedophilia, this sort of thing. So in other words, the Trump family certainly is involved in heinous, heinous criminal activity, and we're not here to discuss that tonight. We may touch on certain things, but for the most part, what we want to do is focus the light on this Dan Scavino guy who's worked so hard to keep the light off of him. And he's worked so hard to create negative buzz, venom, poison, internet trolling, this kind of crap. to attack any opponent of Donald Trump for so long that it's time that he needs to feel it himself. It's all going to come back. Now, just recently, he was named in a lawsuit. I'll just throw that out there right now, because if you were paying attention, he got sued just recently, along with Donald Trump Jr. Now, when Donald Trump became president, of course, most of his business dealings were put in the hands of Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, while Ivanka and himself went into the White House with Jared Kushner. The dealings that went on with the corporation, the foundations, the U.S. government being charged for services, this sort of thing, we'll touch on that. But these are a reoccurring thing that will go on forever. And the big guys like Trump, as long as the big guys like Clinton or the rest of them, Podesta, the rest of these evil, wicked people, will never be tried. But what we can do is take down this small guy, because Donald Trump can't function without him. And once Donald Trump is gone, we can get serious, and we can get these people that are so brainwashed by this Trump bullshit, and we can get them working in the right direction. We can move somewhere. So I'm very happy to know that we can do this. So let's start out talking about Mr. Scavino. Well, first of all, obviously Scavino is Italian. He was raised in New York City. And this, of course, is important because understanding these areas of New York City where he grew up was, I'll just pull up the map here. Yorktown, that's where he went. He went to Yorktown High School. It was when he was going to Yorktown High School is when he got that summer job over at what was the Briarcliff golf course. And this, of course, was the club that Trump bought and eventually became the Trump National Golf Course. But that story in itself is the only thing we ever hear about. So that's your Caddyshack story. Well, basically what he did was in 1992, he was born in 76, I believe. He was supposedly selected as a caddy. I don't know if this was random. I think that he actually had some seniority over the caddies. So if you're trying to look at the Caddyshack movie, he was probably the jerk, not the guy that worked under Chevy Chase. But Trump came there because he wanted to buy the club, the Briar Hall Country Club. And at the time, the place was going bankrupt. It wasn't making any money. If you look at the map, you'll notice there's at least 20-something golf courses, all prestigious, but the place is saturated. And he was looking for an opportunity to expand his portfolio of clubs. Well, he golfed, and he chose this guy as a caddy, and everybody made a big deal out of it. And supposedly, he made such an impression on Trump that Trump actually proclaimed that someday he would be running the club. Well, needless to say, he went on to purchase the club at a very low price, of course, and he renamed it the Trump National Golf Club, Westchester. Now, here's the thing about Westchester, is this is an extremely elite, high-dollar area. So here you've got this guy, this chump dude from Italian guy, who was basically third-generation American or something like that. His grandfather came on a boat from Italy, and the rest of his family subsequently followed afterwards. Well, that was his upbringing. So where he grew up, there were basically two things there were a lot of. There were Italians and Jews. And, of course, he married a Jew. He married a Jewish sweetheart. His wife's name was... what's her name? He was married to her for 20 years anyway. We'll talk about her. But the point was when he hooked up to Donald Trump at that golf club, he was a little guy who had aspirations and ambitions, and Trump was his god. He personified everything that this guy wanted. His life working in that club, that country club, that summer was a view into the prestigious or the elite lifestyle of the very rich. And he wanted it. He loved it. And Trump was his ticket. Now, we don't exactly know what happened after that. We can assume that Trump maintained some sort of communication with him, because I suspect he had something to do with providing some intelligence to Trump during the negotiations for purchasing the club. And of course, he worked for it afterwards. He did have two big jobs after working as a caddy, of course. Well, first of all, he had to graduate, but he graduated from college. It was the State University of New York at Plattsburgh, which is just some little whatever, Plattsburgh. It's not really that big of a deal, but so his BA was in communications. Communications, I assume, is TV, radio, media, whatever. And at this time, probably 1998 is when the internet was just starting off. So that was his thing. Now, they say that after that, he worked for Coca-Cola and another company called Galderma. Now, we should talk about that real quick, because if you look up any history of this guy, they're going to tell you he was working in sales. The reality was he was actually working as a lobbyist. Now, here's a kid that somehow communications has something to do with lobbying, but I suspect his connection to Donald Trump probably had something to do with it. Coca-Cola, fizzy sugar water, we know what that's all about. What is Galderma? Well, Galderma, let me just look at... Galderma basically is a corporation was created by... It's a dermatological skincare products company created by L'Oreal and Nestle. Now, L'Oreal, we know, is a French company, but one of their things they're famous for is supporting the settlements in the West Bank. Nestle, you should know, is an evil corporation. Enough said. It's evil. So what did they do? Well, skincare products, they mostly made Botox. So he was some sort of person out there pushing Botox. So right away, think virus, whatever Botox is. It's some sort of toxin. This is a Swiss pharmaceutical company, all right? Now, his wife, Evelyn, I guess her name is, was also working for a pharmaceutical company. So right away, strong pharmaceutical company. Now, this strikes me because I see this picture here on the Wikipedia page, and there is Donald Trump with Scavino standing next to him with Ivanka, and there is, in the same room, none other than Klaus Schwab, and they're meeting in Davos, Switzerland. I can't help but thinking that his time working for that Swiss pharmaceutical might give him some sort of clout with a guy named Klaus Schwab, who's also a Rothschild agent pushing the Armageddon COVID nonsense. So those were his two big things that he did prior to becoming the manager of Trump's National Golf Club in Westchester. He became the manager. All right. A lot of things happened at this particular club. He wasn't just the manager. He became eventually the CEO, and eventually he became in charge of all of Trump's golf properties and all of the golf operations. But one of the things that's really interesting is that at this particular golf club is where Eric Trump, that's his home club. That's where Eric Trump hangs out. Apparently, this particular location is very popular with the family. Now, Eric has a foundation, and foundations are a big part of what we're going to talk about tonight, but because of Scavino, we're going to talk a little bit more about Eric, because, as I said, Eric and Don, they didn't go to Washington with Ivanka and Dad. They stayed home and they took over the family business. Eric eventually taking over the golf operations, I guess it was. But Eric had a charity. He still does. He has his foundation, and this particular foundation runs a charity, and this particular charity liked to give its money to St. Jude's. And I'll say this at the get-go. Eric, I think, is, for the most part, probably a good kid. I don't think he is innately evil like his brother Don or his dad or his sister, who are definitely following the family line. I think Eric's kind of dumb, and because of that, I think he's a little more naive than the rest of them. But either way, when he started his foundation, he had really good intentions, and he actually gave the money to not City of Hope, but the St. Jude's, which is treats cancer with children. It's a research foundation. Now, he did this for at least 3 years, and what he did was he put together a company with his some friends of his from school. Let me see how many of these people he had. I had a graphic here handy, but apparently he ran this thing for 3 years, and he told all his investors that all the money they made were going to go straight to the foundation, not the foundation, but to pay the charity. Okay, he had, besides himself, he had 6 independent board members. All right. Now, he also told everybody that they weren't having to pay for the expenses for the events. Like, basically what they do is they'd have a big golf event, and you'd have to pay all kinds of money to go to this thing, and the money would all go to the charity, and they'd have a bunch of celebrities and what have you walking around, and the Trump course would basically cover the cost of the event, let them use the course, feed people, whatever was necessary. So in other words, all the expenses were coming out of pocket from the Trump organization. And this went on for at least 3 years or something like this. And that's classic. That's what a foundation's supposed to do. That's how the charity works. Well, what happened is Donald Trump found out about this. This was in 2015 is when the foundation started in 2007, but in 2015, Daddy Trump came along and he gave the foundation $100,000, which you think, whatever, that's not that much, but it should be a tax-deductible gift. Well, anyway, he went and changed the board after that to 16 members. So he increased the independent people, but then he went and added people to the board. Now, the people he added to the board are significant. And I'm going to talk about those people real quick because you'll see that each one of them plays a role in some of the intrigue that takes place. Well, first of them, besides Eric, was his wife, Lara Lee Trump, Eric Trump. And obviously, she basically took the money and diverted it to her personal causes, like where she had her horse boarded, stuff like that. Then we have Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney. Now, Michael Cohen did some time, and we all know that Michael Cohen's writing a book and spilling his guts and all that, but he's not effectively taking down Trump. Then we have Dan Scavino Jr., former Trump Organization executive vice president, current assistant to the president. So in other words, he left the Trump Organization to become a political operative. All right. So there's a big difference because you can't be both. Then there's Larry Glick, Trump Organization executive vice president. Then Matthew Calamari, Trump Organization executive. Now, Matthew, or Matty, is Trump's driver. He's his hitman. He's his bodyguard. He's a big lug with, closely set eyes that drove Trump around and probably carried a gun. He's on the board. Then we have Lynn Patton, former assistant to Eric Trump, current senior advisor of the Trump administration. You see, these people all went into the administration. Carrie Woodlard, Trump Winery general manager. Christy Mahfouz, founder of Ace Specialties, which sold $16 million of goods and services to the Trump campaign. Now, here's the thing. When you have a board like this, it's for a foundation that's supposed to be doing charity, you have certain rules, tax rules, that you have to follow. The independent board members are people, they're all supposed to be independent. They're not supposed to have any financial connection to anything to do with the owner of the foundation, in this case, the father of Eric. To understand what happened, though, you're going to have to go back and look at the father's foundation. But let's put it this way. To start off with the petty crimes, one of the first things they did was they took the money that was donated for the children's cancer research to St. Jude, and they sent it to all kinds of places other than children's cancer research for St. Jude. Now, first of all, they sent it to different people's charities. Legally, a charity, when it's taking money for a charitable cause and they tell the donors that it's going to a certain cause, you cannot give it to something else, even if that something else is a charity. That is still fraud. So right away, blatant fraud was committed. A lot of the times money is laundered this way too. The mafia does this. This was set up like a mafia organization. And remember, Scavino was sitting there while this was going on. For instance, the donations. Eric said that his fundraisers received all these donations. The IRS could show no such donations. When Eric sought the tax-free status from the IRS, he said that he would not do business with a company if any of its corporate officers were on the family's board. Now, he's executive vice president of the Trump Organization, which operates and controls all the golf courses. And so there was no way. It was never separated. So in other words, when he filed for this thing, it was never done. Look, some of the donations shows here he gave $10,000 to a Chabad Lubitsch or Kushner and Ivanka. This was never shown. This is certainly not St. Jude's. One of the charities he gave to was for a guy named Larry Spiewak, another friend of Ivanka and Jared, and he was a big Jewish community leader, and he gave early support for Trump's run for president. There's another foundation, or the foundation has bylaws which basically make Eric Trump the chairman for as long as he remains on the board, and it reserves board seats for any children he may eventually have. Now, the bottom line is, it's not a private business. You can't do that. That's not how you run a charity. Well, I should tell you guys a little bit about this golf course. This isn't really so much the crimes. And I'm not exactly sure when he did this, but some of the things that they did, and this is really a key to the whole thing. But when Trump bought this golf course, he didn't pay all that much of it. But basically, every single year since 2015, he's been challenging the tax assessments. The local tax officials say that the property is worth $15 million. Trump's trying to tell him it's only worth $1.4 million. Remember, this is in Westchester. Okay. It's a big piece of property. Now, he finally had to settle and said that it was worth like $9 million or something like that. He wanted it to be like $6 million, it was negotiation or whatever. But the city finally settled for like $9 million instead of 16. The thing is, though, is that the property's worth like $52 million, $53 million. That's just one property. Trump himself pocketed $9 million in his pocket so far, and yet he's trying to tell everyone that the property's worth 1 point something million. It's insane. This devaluation of the property, it's happening everywhere. Once again, this seems like a petty thing. It seems like business, civil law. But this is exactly what the district attorney is chasing them for right now in New York. Now, of course, Trump has sued this woman, whatever her name is, Letitia or something, the DA over there, and trying to say that she's on some vendetta against the former first family, you know, like as if that had something to do with it. You got to understand, though, this has been going on way, way, way longer than since he was president. Like I said, since 2015, he's been undervaluing the property. And these things going on with Eric, they may seem petty, but it happens over and over and over. There was this is what these guys do. They sit around and try to connive this stuff. And the point is that Mr. Scavino is sitting there with them. There was a big painting that was commissioned. It was donated as some sort of, as a donation. It was given as a donation. It was supposed to be auctioned off or something like that. It ended up hanging up in Eric's house or something like that. It was supposed to be valued at $10,000 or something like that. They act like they don't remember it. They're taking the money out of these trusts and they're using it like it's their personal wallet. It's illegal. Any one of us will be thrown in jail for this stuff. Now, this is just this petty money crap. The presidency. Hey, when Donald Trump became president, he charged us $11 to $17 million just for staying in his own properties. It goes on and on and on and on. Well, the thing about Scavino is what he's doing for Trump, running his Twitter and his social media. Now, Donald Trump is kind of an idiot himself. Everyone tries to say he's some sort of a genius, but like I said, the reason why I even looked at this guy and took an interest in him was because the Q-tards were taking his Twitter post and they were coming up with numbers and saying that this Dan guy was producing coded messages that somehow related to Trump still being president and people being arrested and all this bullshit happening. Now, naturally, I have a strong desire to see that go away and root out the source of any of this Q bullshit. It turns out that this is the guy. Now, I can go on and on, but if you go back to when he was president or when Trump wasn't president, when he was the so-called communications director, he did get in trouble. He did violate the Hatch Act while he was doing it. People don't make a big deal out of that, but that kind of shows how stupid he was. As a functionary for Donald Trump, somebody that's working in the White House, he can't personally solicit people on behalf of another candidate running for some other office in some other place. That's a violation of the Hatch Act. That's exactly what he did when he was at some fundraiser for Trump. He squirted off some little quickie tweet that basically said, you know, go out and defeat this other person that was apparently a Democrat. He can't do that. It basically bars executive branch of employees from taking part in electoral activities. But he did that. He got a little slap on the wrist. No big deal. That was in 2017. In 2018, he got divorced from his wife. Now, he had done a social media thing when Donald was running against Hillary, and he said that Hillary, of course, was the greatest criminal or the most corrupt politician of all time. And he did that using a shape or logo, a thing that looked like the Star of David. And he published this in a supposed, they say, a white supremacist site. I don't know what that means. That could be 4chan or any of those so-called Q arenas. Anyway, he was accused of anti-Semitism, and he changed it to a circle. But then he came back and said, well, I'm married to a Jewish woman, so, how can you say anti-Semitic? So that's true. His children are certainly Jewish by that. He's got 2 Jewish children. If you look at his tweets and you look at Trump's tweets, first of all, Trump's Twitter is gone. Dan Scavino's Twitter is still there. And if you look at his tweets, you'll notice that there's all kinds of fancy, colorful pictures of Trump and with people cheering in the background, and it's all done in such a way it's supposed to look very patriotic. The followers of him in public, they try to paint him as some sort of a very patriotic person. If you look at his Twitter and you go down and just so far, you're going to see there's nothing of any substance there. It's all colorful pictures. There are images of his dogs. There's images of golf courses. There's images of military hardware, and lots of pro-Americana type flag waving, this and that. Now, basically, what that is jingoism. All right, what he does is he shows extreme patriotism, especially in the form of aggressive or warlike foreign policy. This is how they're appealing to all of these people that make up the basis of Donald Trump's support. It's all about raw America, football, golden labs, you name it. Jets, battleships, aircraft carriers. He made a big deal out of the murder of a police officer here in New York and how apparently thousands of cops showed up for this funeral. Of course, what was it? Some woman actress got in trouble because she also mentioned that, well, if all those cops could be at the funeral, how do we need them the rest of the time? But Susan Sarandon said that. Anyway, Scavino apparently was the guy that managed this January 6th insurrection, where Trump basically got his followers riled up, and they told them to march on the Congress in order to try to keep them from making a vote to declare the Electoral College results legitimate. Well, they, of course, have been trying to subpoena this guy for some time, and he's been hiding out. And apparently he just got one of his representatives at Mar-a-Lago took the subpoena, and he's been trying to tell everybody that, no, he wasn't hiding. And apparently he was at this funeral in New York with all these cops, and I guess this was the thing. Now, again, this is a perfect example of this jingoism. Yeah, it's a police state. Yeah, these guys want to take over the country with law enforcement. Yeah, his background is pharmaceutical. His wife, pharmaceutical. I look at this guy, this what's his name, 47 years old, whatever it is, dumpy-looking character. I see a man that thinks golf courses represent reality. I see a man that's never been in the military, probably has no experience with guns. I don't see any kind of sports other than golf. I don't see any kind of evidence of any kind of manly activity other than he likes to watch football. Seriously. I see no intelligence background whatsoever. No CIA, no NSA, no training in these areas. He's he's got a BA in communications, and he's directing Trump. Everything that Trump does is based on the effects of what he says as determined by the response on Twitter or social media in general. He's running around telling people about how many followers he has. The guy is a kiss-ass brown-noser who basically is telling Trump how good he is. He's never giving him an accurate representation of his chances or anything. And this is what he's listening to. It's the guy needs to go away. I really don't want to waste a whole lot of more time on, but what I envision, or what I would like to see, is I would like to see this Dan Scavino guy become a meme. Now, if you followed me on QAnon, and if you follow me now, you'll know that this can be very effective. We did it to Jeffrey Epstein. We did it to Acosta. We've done it to others. Hell, we did it to Oliver North. So we made these guys go away. We can do the same thing with this guy. He needs to go away. And the other thing is that we need to paint him with the dirty brush, because right now he's not getting it from anybody, even the left. The left will say he's a slimy person because of the stuff that he puts out on Twitter. That's true. But what they're not saying is that he was there in those meetings where the diversion of funds and all of the other criminal activity took place. Now, before I go any further, I should mention that Donald Trump had a foundation too. Now, his father, Frederick, also fell in trouble with the law. The same thing. He had to transfer everything over to Donald. When Donald took over, well, here it is right here. Let's see. In 2015, articles about Trump's arrest at a 2027 Ku Klux Klan parade resurfaced in light of his son's presidential campaign. In 2018, an expose by the New York Times revealed that Trump and his wife, Marianne McLeod Trump, that's Frederick's, Donald's dad, provided over $1 billion in 2018 currency to the children, effectively evading over $500 million in gift taxes. And Trump then contributed this to Donald before his death. He had Alzheimer's, and he transferred the bulk of all his apartment buildings to the rest of the children. Now, you guys should know that when the old man Trump died and Donald took it over, the will did not give everything to Donald Trump. It was divided amongst the rest of the children. Donald Trump went in there and had the will redone. He had everything put in his name. It was done that way on purpose to prevent him from blowing it all. It should be known. Well, guys, back to the purpose here. I need you guys to make this guy into a meme. Now, those of you who are listening, I know a lot of you are very good at this. Look into this guy. Be creative. I'll certainly be there to help as much as possible, but we need to make this guy dirty, and we need to show these people that are following him and think that he's some sort of a patriot that he's not. I mean, we already know that the rest of these guys are bad. I mean, hell. Other than this dude, who's the most powerful guy in the Donald Trump organization? Weisselberg, that was the guy that ran all the money. I mean, that guy, if he turns on Donald Trump, he could take it all down too, but that's probably not going to happen. But this guy is a little bit weaker. I think we can put some pressure on this dude, and who knows? If he doesn't kill himself, we can take down the entire Trump crime family with this one guy. So I need your help. All right, so let's make this Dan Scavino guy famous for the wrong reasons, and I'll try to talk about him a little bit more, but what more can I say other than he's dirty, all right? He may not be as dirty as Biden, he may not be as dirty as Trump himself, but he's dirty enough to go to jail. And he's small enough to actually go to jail, unlike Clinton, unlike Trump, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So guys like Fred Trump and Donald Trump and Eric Trump and Donald Jr., they all might get slaps on the wrist. They might pay millions of dollars in fines. But this guy here, he's not one of them. He's not from Westchester. He's from Yorktown. Okay? He's just a guy from Yorktown. We can deal with this. He's weak. And the other thing is that he reads Twitter. He follows the stuff on social media. He puts great gravity and importance on this stuff. So if we make it bad for him and we meme the death out of him and spam this stuff all over the place, he's going to have to respond. At the very least, we can make him say Occupy the Getty, or we can make him say Stephen Kelly. All right? I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm sorry, but I think that's kind of important. And I'm asking you guys to do some work for me, okay? And I'm just going to say real quick, I'm going to have to do a little break here because I'm going to skip the break. Sorry about that. But you guys, I ask for money every week, but yeah, I still need money. So yes, if you can help me out, it's the PayPal, and the PayPal is StephenKelly714@yahoo.com, and you do have to say it's for friend or family, or I will have to send it back. And of course, if you want a copy of the book, please send me an email to law17gun@aol.com, and I'll be happy to do that. Also, the healing is something that I'm very happy to do for anybody at any time, assuming they give me permission and, you know, a photograph so I can actually do it. Send me an email. If there's anything else you need whatsoever, you want to become a Jedi or you want to learn about that stuff, please email me. And I'm going to leave it at that. But again, I'm throwing it back at you guys. I need your help. I need you guys to light the fire and run with this stuff for me. And even if it doesn't seem like it's significant or it's unimportant, I think it is. I think that this is a very weak link, a domino that we can trigger. And I think if we can trigger this guy, I think we can start something that'll lead to us being able to push this in the direction we need in a big way. All right? Anyway. All right, listen, I'm sorry for waking you up and not taking a sleep, but I need to get through this thing, and I need to get this information out as best I could. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please contact me, like I said. But again, it's important that you guys pick up and run with this thing, okay? Just please, I really need your help on this. All right, with that, I'm going to say good night, and thank you for tuning in. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a comment, all right? Once again, my name is Stephen Kelly. This is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. We are TruthCat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. It's still February 3rd, 2022. I'll see you next week. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.